Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of Spoiler Force Podcast courtesy of Popluck. You can find more episodes of Spoiler Force Podcast on Apple Podcast, SoundCloud, YouTube, or on Facebook at facebook.com/popluckpodcast.
Hey guys, this is AmberSkies, and you're listening to Spoiler Force Podcast.
Alright, so this is episode 39 of Spoiler Force Podcast. My name is Ricky, and thank you for tuning in. First, before I get started, I wanted to thank LP and Hmong Productions for letting me use their tracks for my podcast here. So thank you guys. So this week, I have a very special guest, one of my first cosplayer guests on the podcast here. I actually met my guest here back in 2015 for the first time. It was at Anime Expo in LA. She's also a Twitch streamer, prop maker, artist as well. So let me just introduce my guest here, AmberSkies. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I did want to just talk about when I first met you before we get started with everything as well. It was back in 2015 in Anime Expo. My buddies and I, we all went. I was fortunate to go because my friend was able to buy us all tickets and everything. He booked the trip for us.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so this was my first anime convention that I really went to, and surprisingly enough, it was one of the biggest ones in LA, which is Expo, and I remember, yeah, I remember specifically like when I first met you. It was the first day, which I think was well, not really the first day, but it was on the Friday because I think they start Thursday.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right. The first meaningful day.
yeah. So I went on Friday. It's at the Staples Centers, I believe.
Yeah. Well, it's next door to the Staples Center and like the big convention center, but it's basically conjoined with it, and they use it for programming and stuff. But it's the whole block.
Yeah, because I remember that first entrance, and you know how it's like the big stairwell, and like when everyone's just waiting in line,
Oh
and
yeah.
waiting to enter the actual convention. That's where I first met you. Like
Lovingly
after,
referred to as LineCon, right? Where everyone
yeah,
stands outside, you're just kind of standing in line.
because like it was just so packed, and like there wasn't really
Oh,
like no line. Everyone was just waiting by the stairs, and then once the line started picking up, I remember walking up, and right at the doorway where you actually walk into the actual convention for Expo,
yeah.
you were walking around in the tuxedo mask cosplay
Oh,
from
what
Sailor
a
Moon.
throwback. What a throwback. That was so long ago. That was 5 years ago.
Yeah, and it was just
Crazy.
crazy because I just got done like taking selfies with so many other cosplayers. I was just walking and I just shouted. I was like, "Hey, tuxedo mask!" And you turned around. We took a quick selfie. I still have that photo on like
Oh,
my
I
old,
love
yeah,
that.
it's on my old computer. And then like we took a selfie really quick, and then I was like, "Thank you so much for taking the picture." And you're like, "Here you go." And you gave me a card, which I still have somewhere in my room.
Oh my God, you have one of my OG business cards then. That was like Mach 1 business card.
Yeah, because I remember that specifically because like right after the selfie, you just handed me the card. I'm like, okay, thank you, and I just kept it. I'm glad I didn't throw it out because like
I, most people do, and that's kind of what I have to like prepare myself when I'm buying them. All right, 90% of these are gonna get chucked in the trash, and you just go in knowing.
because usually what I do with the cards is like I actually take my time and like look through like which cards I've collected.
Me
So like
too.
after pretty much after me and my friends we were done with that Friday, we went back to the hotel, and then I looked at the cards, and I was like looking up every cosplayer card that I got just to follow them on Facebook, and then at the
That's
time
awesome.
I followed yours, and yeah, I mean like it's just crazy to think like how far back I followed your career back in 2015 and up till now, like
Right. Oh my gosh.
just seeing the progression and your growth as a content creator, and because like you're not just a cosplayer now, you're streaming, you're creating props, and like I've seen your growth from like just through social media and everything too, and
Thank you.
it's
Thank you for
amazing.
saying that.
Yeah, and it's just amazing to see like how far you've come because like during that time during Expo, I was like following so many cosplayers like crazy, like from you to like Amy Lynn, Jessica
Yeah.
Nigri, like I can there's like so many at the time that I was following like crazy. Now I've kind of like just everyone's like just kind of grown in their own way. So I've been following like the ones that I really like from that time on, and
Right,
you're
and it's like that was your first taste of it all too.
yeah, they're just like it hit me like a brick wall. Like just like oh my goodness, like so many cosplayers. Like I didn't think I always knew cosplay was a big thing, like especially in Japan, but I didn't know it was that big in the States, especially like in California, because like I didn't know that there
Oh
was that many people like into the art, and so yeah, like just meeting you, you were like one of the first that I met in person, and then like you're actually the first cosplayer that I follow that agreed to be on the podcast. So again, I want to thank you for this
yeah.
opportunity because this is a big thing for me too. And like I've been
Thank
like
you.
yeah, and I've been like pushing to try to get cosplayers on my podcast too. And it just I know that there's so many of them that they're all busy and everything, but you were the one that actually responded first. So again, I'm very thankful for that.
Oh, you're so sweet. No, and I've done a couple podcasts before, but it's fun for me because you're far away from me. You're on the other side of the country, I think, right?
Yeah, I'm based in Michigan.
Oh, God. Oh, so you're in the freezing cold.
Yeah, we got
Couldn't be more
snow.
opposite for me. I'm all the way in the desert in Arizona, but the couple of times that I've done podcasts, it's always been like someone local and in person, and they've been like, "Hey, come over to the studio," and I got to like have the little headset on and like talk to the microphone. So it's totally different doing it over a Skype call, but it's kind of fun because I can just kind of zone out on my end and think about all my answers really hard. So
Yeah,
it's lots of fun.
no, yeah, thank you. Like you said, you're from Arizona. Like on my last episode, I mentioned I mentioned I previewed this episode. I said L.A., but I want to clarify for my listeners. You're from Arizona, not L.A.
Oh yeah, well, I'm next door neighbors to LA, and I'm in LA enough that I often just say I'm like, yeah, yes, I know enough people here that I could basically live in LA, Anaheim more specifically because my life is Disneyland.
For the listeners who are just getting to know you, can you just like talk about like how you first started like cosplaying and what kind of got you into the whole community and pretty much just
Sure.
anything like pop culture?
Right. Well, it's kind of fun because I came into cosplay at what was essentially the later cusp of like the dawn of pop culture. Like, if you were to rewind a couple of years, even before I started cosplaying, it was still kind of a niche thing. You couldn't walk into a Hot Topic or any stores and see, Sailor Moon, My Hero Academia merchandise. Like, it just wasn't even, pop culture hadn't evolved that far yet. And the nostalgia factor that's kind of like come into cosplay and come into culture was a relatively recent thing. I mean, like all of us 80s, 90s kids were raised with this stuff, and now the marketing has caught on to what we actually want, and that's nostalgia value. So when I jumped in on cosplay, I would say I've been doing this professionally for like 7 years now, I'd say. But when I started, it was right around that Anime Expo. 2014, 2013 was the first time I dabbled in true costume making. But cosplay for me started, I guess, before I was even calling it cosplay. It was just Halloween when I was younger. I've done a lot of stage acting growing up. And then the true cosplay factor came in when it was Halloween that got crazy out of control. And then I realized from going to my local convention, which was Phoenix Comic Con, and now it's called Phoenix Fan Fusion. It's gone through a couple name changes, but just having attended the show and seeing that I didn't have to just dress up on Halloween, I could dress up all times of the year. I was like, ooh, I could get behind this. And I was raised on like, Inuyasha and Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, like that 90s anime. And my dad actually inspired a lot of my love of reasons why I am the way I am. He taught me how to read using ElfQuest comic books. So my mom and dad like raised me with a comic book in my hand. And then my dad actually here in Phoenix owned a tabletop miniature brick and mortar store, and it was also an internet arcade back when like LAN gaming was still a thing, and you had to sit next to the person you were playing World of Warcraft with in order to play with them. So I was raised the nerd world. My friends when I was growing up through elementary school were like 40-year-old sweaty guys hanging out at the gaming store playing Dungeons and Dragons and Magic and Warhammer 40K and all of those things. So I was the 8-year-old running around playing with these guys, and I was spoke the language, and I was raiding at World of Warcraft at 11 years old, I was playing Vanilla WoW. So I was just kind of set up to eventually fall into this life anyhow. And I've been an artist my whole life, and I'm always painting, always making something. And so I turned that into Halloween craze, and then I went, oh wow, I'm hooked. And so everything that kind of led up to me loving everything about pop culture and Marvel, DC, anime, like you name it, I was like, I'm all about this life. So yeah, I would say 2015 when I met you was one of the first times I had even gone to Anime Expo, if not the first time I had gone, because I learned about all of these cool cons and they all had different focuses. It was either an anime show or it was San Diego Comic-Con, which was, wow, that's the mecca. And then I learned about those smaller local shows, and I just dove in like head on. And my first costume that I ever made, even before Tuxedo Mask, was one of my hardest, funny enough. My very first build was EVA foam armor. And that was before there was crazy tutorials all over the internet. It was just me experimenting with bending plastic and painting foam gym mats and stuff like that, because I made Sergeant Calhoun from Wreck-It Ralph.
Right,
Do
that was
you
actually
remember that one?
yeah, that was actually one of my favorites because you look just like the character too, and I
Oh,
love and I love your take with the wedding dress one too, where you have the machine
oh
gun,
my,
and that's such a great
yes,
photo.
yes. Oh yeah, but so Wreck-It Ralph had come out that year, and I was like, you know what? I want to be a part. I was in college at the time, and I was like, I want to do something crazy for Halloween. And so a bunch of my friends were like, hey, we're doing the Wreck-It Ralph characters, and I was like, can I join? And I like invited myself into their group, and they were like, I mean, I guess so. And then I made it in my dorm room, and then I mean, it was like stuff I found at Goodwill. It was like little boys' football shoulder pads that were my Calhoun shoulder pads. And I added foam from Michaels, and it was just garbage stuff. But I pieced it all together and painted it in the way that I knew how to, and it ended up looking really awesome. So that was my first taste of cosplay. And then I wore that to Comic-Con, and the response was just crazy. And I was like, okay, I'm hooked. And then there came the wedding dress variant and everything else. And I was like, what can I learn about this life? Because I love it.
Now, when it comes to like creating your cosplay, like did you just kind of experiment on your own, like just finding material, learning what to use, and like how I guess everything like takes shape and form? Because like I'm terrible when it comes to like crafting or anything, or like even building. So I have no idea how this stuff works. Man, I find it some like that's my favorite aspect of cosplay because seeing like how you and a bunch of other cosplayers on social media like build your costumes and like just like I remember watching one cosplayer. She was going live and she was just like taking her time, like putting the armor, like the tiniest details. Like for you, did you
Yeah.
did you kind of just like learn to do this on your own, or were you like learning like through YouTube tutorials or like through books or anything like that?
I learned certain things through YouTube tutorials. Like whenever I would run into a snag of some kind, I would hunt for a solution via YouTube. But really, I've always been just like a maker. Like that's the best way I can describe myself is I just make stuff. And a lot of my first initial costumes and how I like to cosplay now, like for enjoyment, is I like to recycle. Not that I'm like a huge green freak or anything like that, and it's good to recycle, but I like looking at a thing and seeing the potential on what it could be. And that's that crazy creative part of my brain that my dad has always fostered. And my dad's exactly the same way. We're both like crazy ADHD people. And so we're like, oh, what could that be? Oh, what could that be? And so we'll find pieces of plastic with like interesting shapes and we'll see things and we'll go, oh, that would make a perfect knob on a jetpack. Or, ooh, that would be an amazing funnel for this thing. And we could turn that into like a blaster. And so we're always looking at stuff and saying like, how could I turn that into something else? So I guess it is entirely self-taught in that degree, but I would research and kind of try to learn from others, word of mouth, online, like when I would run into a problem. But for the most part, I'm just kind of always gluing crap together and seeing what I can make out of it. And really, you can hide any sort of crafting with a good paint job too. And what I pride myself in the most is I was a painter before I was a cosplayer. So my dad and myself, we would do wall murals for people. And so I was a muralist. I now am also still an acrylic on canvas painter. And it's funny, Right now, I have one of my pieces I was painting all day in front of me as we're on this conversation here. I was painting today, for example, because now, in conjunction with cosplay, when I go to these shows and events and I set up my booth, I sell my cosplay prints and I sell my art prints. So yeah, painting's been a huge part of my life, but yeah, I was gonna say it's all just kind of winging it and hoping for the best. That's my type of cosplay. So like when you say, "Oh, I'm bad at crafting," well, that's only a type of cosplay. Like anybody can cosplay and there's no wrong way to do it. I'm such a huge proponent of like literally anybody can do this because there's nothing wrong with buying a costume. There's nothing wrong with buying a used costume off somebody else. There's nothing wrong with going to Goodwill and picking up stuff and just putting it together, or going in your closet and pulling out stuff that looks like the person. So it's all just grown-ups playing dress up. So people that take it really seriously, they're like, oh, that's not cosplay. It is, and anybody can do it. And Ricky, you can do it.
I
Do
hope
it too. You're a cosplayer in your own special way.
I hope so. Yeah, because usually, like for me, how I look at cosplay is like I feel like a lot of cosplayers are, or cosplay itself is like making it from the ground up. I feel like when you
Right.
buy Halloween costumes, it's kind of like cheating. So it's more like dress up. And I mean, people have like their different takes on it, but I really respect the ones that build their own costumes, like how you do, and because like
Totally.
like for me, I could like literally sit and watch people like make this stuff because like I think for me like I have this like appreciation of seeing people do things that I can't do. So like I really like
Right.
dive deep into seeing how they just create and how they mold, and like it's just a really cool thing because like my one of my friends, or the buddy that took me to Anime Expo, he's not exactly a crafter himself, but he's very artistic when it comes to sketch drawing. So he knows like the details that
Right.
he wants. So he'll have his like welding buddies make whatever he wants, and like he made his own Power Ranger suit with them, and they were like crafting and welding, and it was really cool to see that kind
That
of,
is so
yeah,
awesome.
to see that kind of experience. So like I know that for you, when you create, do you still keep like most of your material, or do you kind of just resell them, or
I I'm a little bit of a hoarder in that way, and I have still almost every costume I've ever made. they're all um they're all stacked in boxes up to the ceiling in my garage, and hanging in closets and everywhere. So there will come a time where I have to just start downsizing the stuff that I don't wear anymore. But it's so hard because you work so hard and become so attached to it. You're like, no, I don't want to get rid of it. So like my original Sergeant Calhoun that I was referring to, that is ancient. It's going on what, 6 years old now, 7 years old. It's as old as I've been cosplaying, and it has been worn so many times it's just falling to pieces. And so, much to my dismay, I think I'm gonna have to let her go soon and make her again from scratch correctly so she'll last longer. But there's so much hard work that goes into it, and for those that do create their costumes, it's hard to let go of it sometimes.
yeah, like because you invest so much time into like making your props and whatnot, and
Mhm.
it's like you don't want to see all that effort just gone. And just speaking about effort and like creating, like you won several awards for your cosplay, and one of the cosplays that really stand out is your Nebula one. So how did that?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that process of making your Nebula costume?
Oh boy, Nebula. Okay, so Nebula as a cosplay for me. This is Nebula from Guardians of the Galaxy for you listeners. The blue and purple daughter of Thanos, the cybernetic babe. um, I so Nebula and I go way back to the very first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, which I think was named 2016, something in there, 2017 maybe. Whenever Guardians 1 came out. Um, it all started, funny enough, I've made two versions of Nebula. There's Nebula version 1 from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, and then Nebula 2 from Volume 2 of Guardians of the Galaxy, and then Avengers, and then Endgame. So following through, she wears the same outfit. So I have two different variants on Nebula. But the reason Nebula even came to be, funny enough, is I was a part of, or supposed to be a part of, a full Guardians of the Galaxy group at Phoenix Comic Con, which is that first show I talked about falling in love with. Um, and so there was supposed to be a full group of us with like a Drax, a Star Lord, a Rocket, like everybody, a Gamora. And it started out as a Facebook message of me talking with all these people, and I really didn't know them very well, but they were just local costumers, and they were like, "Hey, we're looking for another person to fill this character's slot. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, well, this is kind of a really minor character, but she looks cool and I want to be a part of a thing with other people. Because the plan was for us to all compete. We were trying to like make these like, ooh, really cool. We're going to do a Guardians of the Galaxy group and we're all going to go on stage and we're going to compete at the Phoenix Comic Con Masquerade. And so I was like, sweet. So whenever I get an idea in my head, however, I immediately like have to take action. I like poisons my little brain and I get so excited. I'm like, I need to start right now. And so the second we finished the conversation, I was already researching like, okay, I need some pictures. I got to figure out what I'm going to buy. And so I went to Goodwill and I'm not amazing at sewing, weirdly enough. It's not my strongest suit. I can sew. I just making an entire suit from scratch wasn't really my forte. So I was like, I gotta look for purple stuff because Nebula's first suit is purple. So I ended up coming home with these crazy pair of purple pants and like they were nurses scrubs or something like that, and then like a top that kind of matched, was like an exercise top, and a couple of purses, some belts, and I chopped it all up, and over the course of a couple of months I managed to like replicate it looking pretty much like the movie. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So I worked and worked and worked, and it got to about 2 weeks before Phoenix Comic Con was supposed to happen. But I realized in that group, nobody had really been posting any progress pictures. Nobody had really talked about it. So I popped into the message after a couple of months went by and I was like, hi, you guys, here's my build. This is me wearing it. I'm so excited. I like hadn't done the makeup test or anything yet, but I was like so ready to show them. And I was met with, oh, sorry, we should have told you. Yeah, I'm working. This person's out of town. This person's busy. And so the group is canceled. So for months I slaved and I tried to get it screen accurate and I like taught myself how to sew and all of this stuff only to have every single person in the group drop out on me. So I was like, and I was so upset. So I was like, oh, that would happen, right? Of course. And so then there was no competing and I was really downtrodden and I almost said to myself, like, who's even going to recognize this character without the rest of the squad? Because really, Nebula in the first movie only had like 4 lines and like 2 minutes of screen time. So I was like, shit, this is so annoying. But I had remembered seeing another cosplayer around at the shows who cosplayed a really amazing Gamora. And I was like, I don't even know this girl. Like, should I just like reach out and be a weirdo and ask her if she wants to like be my sister and dress up with me? And we could at least be Nebula and Gamora. That way it made a little more sense. And it wasn't just me walking around Comic-Con by myself. And so I tracked the girl down on Facebook. I messaged her and I told her what happened. And I was like, is there any chance you want to like pick a day? I'll do whatever you want. Like, can we just walk around together so it makes more sense? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. And that amazing person is now one of my best friends. Her name is Sarah Moni, Saramoni, Sarah Moni Cosplay. And she's local and now one of my dearest friends. And she and I have been sisters through and through. And Nebula and Gamora, ever since going to that Comic-Con, our pages just exploded. That was back before the Instagram algorithm was so ruthless and you could like naturally gain followers just by like being good at your craft and like not even really promoting but just existing. And so the chronological order of the old Instagram algorithm made it so we got a lot of followers that came flooding in because they were like, oh my god, you look like Nebula and Gamora, that's crazy. And we were like, really? And so we just kind of rode the wave. And so it was us too, you know. And then time had gone on, and a photographer, a local photographer, had seen how, I guess, good we looked as Nebula and Gamora, and asked if he could buy us a special meet and greet with Karen Gillan, the actress, of course, that plays Nebula in the movie, because she was coming for one of the shows here in Phoenix, and we were like, holy shit, absolutely. And so he purchased us we still don't, it's crazy to think, but this gentleman paid for 11 photo slots.
Oh
with
wow.
Karen Gillan. And so me and Sarah got dressed, we went down there, and essentially the photographer, like the guy, I guess he was like some rich engineer or something that did photography on the side, but he bought 11 photo shoots with Karen. And really, all he wanted to do was get some pictures and then just give us time to talk with her. And so he just stood there and smiled and like watched me and Sarah like talk with Karen. And Karen's hilarious, by the way, because Karen's like, "Oh my God, you guys look amazing." And so she's like 6 feet tall, and we were like looking up at her like, "Yeah, you're the real Karen." So we got to meet Karen Gillan, which then when we posted those pictures, the pages exploded even more. And we were on Reddit. We were getting covered by news networks. And then I was like, wow, all of this stuff is happening because of this Nebula character. This is crazy. And I know I'm babbling, and this is good story, but I'm sure I'm talking loud and fast, so I apologize.
No, it's okay. I'm like so drawn into the story. Like that's
Oh,
amazing.
good. I'm so
Yeah,
glad. I'm
because
like,
like I didn't realize like someone paid for you to meet Karen. Like I always thought like
yeah, some random stranger wanted to have me and Sarah meet Karen because he was like, "You look so amazing and she deserves to see this." And so that was my first time meeting Karen. And crazy things just began happening after that over and over and over. So my photos with Karen, I have some really silly ones of her and I holding hands and like leaping into the air, like, you know, like when you snapshot, like leap and kick your legs in the air. There's some ridiculous photos of me and Karen floating around the internet somewhere. And those got picked up by the BBC Scotland.
oh wow.
And so one day I receive a retweet on Twitter from Karen herself going, "To the best Nebula cosplayer ever." And she posts the article that BBC Scotland wrote about me.
That is
And
awesome.
her and I taking our pictures together. And I was like, this is an out of body experience right now. I'm sorry, what? And so I took so many screenshots of Karen, like, and she was like, "Love you." And I was like, oh my God. And so after that point, you know, I kept wearing Nebula, kept wearing her out. I kept trying to spruce her up and make her better. And then Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 comes along. And when I see those promo photos of Guardians Volume 2, I went, oh boy, new outfit. So it was time to retire the purple suit. And now I saw these pictures of this new red suit. It's the red leather Ravager suit that she wears in the second film and then beyond. And I was like, oh man, this is so cool. But I went, I don't know if I'm going to make it though, because, you know, the other one is fine. And I was like, maybe I'll get to it eventually. Well, magically, one fateful day, I open up my email inbox to an email from Judy at marvel.com. And the caption in the subject box just said, opportunity. And I went, huh? I was like, oh, what? And so I open up the email, and it's this lady named Judy, and she's like, hi, my name's Judy. I am one of the producers here at Marvel, and we stumbled across your Nebula cosplay on Instagram. We were searching hashtags and we were looking up Nebula cosplayer, and we ran into yours and a couple of others, but yours really stood out to us. And I am in charge of, she's telling me about what she does. I'm in charge of the Marvel YouTube channel, and I run a mini documentary series called Marvel Becoming. And she's like, Marvel Becoming is the series that we're trying to start up on YouTube through Marvel, of where we film cosplayers getting ready from start to finish as some of our favorite characters. And she was like, you are by far the best Nebula we've seen. Would you be interested in coming out to LA to our film studio, along with a couple of other Guardians cosplayers, because we're doing a Guardians of the Galaxy themed series of episodes. We're going to do a Yondu, we're going to do a Mantis, and we're going to do new Nebula. Would you be interested? Thanks, let me know. And my heart fell out of my ass. I was like, this is what dreams are made of. Are you serious? So I ran screaming to my dad, and I was like, holy shit. And so I told him, and he was like, well, yeah. And so I formulated an email back to her, trying not to scream too much internally, but I was like, all right, keep it cool, got to be professional. So I replied, and I was like, I would love the opportunity. Sounds amazing. Because she made it clear that they wanted the new outfit. And then my brain went, okay, well, guess I'm making this new red outfit then, because clearly if Marvel wants to film me, we got to look good. And so I asked her in the reply, along with my yes, please, dear God, yes, please. What is my deadline? And she goes, well, that's the tricky part. And she goes, our deadline is 5 weeks from now. And I went, huh? She goes, yeah, it needs to be edited and finished within 5 weeks. She goes, so we're going to need you in 3.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, huh? And I have a job. I'm a full-time teacher here in Arizona. And so Marvel wanted to scoop me away to make this costume from scratch, film in LA, and have it edited within 5 weeks. And she wanted me there with the costume finished in 3. So I took a deep breath and I went, well, I can sure try. And then that led to the roller coaster of me going to every Goodwill imaginable, and upholstery store, and every sort of crafty place imaginable, trying to scrap together this spacesuit in 3 weeks. And it's red leather. It's got all this strapping and detailing and texture and airbrushing and painting and all of this stuff. And I was like, I have such limited time to do this because I have to teach 5 days a week. What the hell am I going to do? And so somehow by taking a couple of personal days here and there, and one day I literally was just in tears and I called out sick from work, sick quote unquote, because I had to sit at home and finish the damn costume. But I managed to get it done in 3 weeks. And Marvel was really awesome because they actually hooked me up to their file sharing network, and they sent me high resolution 360 pictures of the costume so I could replicate it exactly like the film.
Oh, that is awesome.
And it was crazy. Yeah, I know, because they made me an account in like the Marvel file sharing network, and they slapped my name across all of the images and watermarks, so if anything linked or leaked on the internet, they would know who to sue. So I was like, oh my God, nobody can see these pictures or else I'm like super screwed forever. And so I did it. I managed to put the whole damn costume together in 3 weeks. My dad and I drove to Los Angeles on Easter Sunday because that was when they wanted to film. We filmed all day in this amazing studio called Fonco, Fonco Studios. And that is where they filmed stop motion photography for James and the Giant Peach and The Nightmare Before Christmas. So chilling in display cases were just the original sculpts from like Jack Skellington, the Giant Peach, and I was like losing my mind. This was like a real film studio. There was a real film crew. There was real makeup artists. There was like people there to make this production a reality, and it was all about me. And so they filmed me, and you can actually see it on YouTube even still. It's still on there, of me at this film studio. If you go to Marvel's channel on YouTube and you look up, what is it, Marvel Becoming? Yeah, it's like a whole subcategory in their YouTube channel. It says Nebula Marvel Becoming AmberSkies. And it was one of the coolest experiences I have ever had. And that going live onto YouTube, again, made my numbers skyrocket. People found me, more opportunities came along because of Nebula. And now that I had this new suit, it was even more relevant because another person saw that after the Marvel Becoming episode, and that person ended up becoming one of my friends who's a producer of events, like social events in LA. And I ended up, this sounds crazy too, I ended up being invited to Stan Lee's 95th birthday party.
I heard about that event, and I know like there were some other cosplayers that I follow like that went there. I know Ivy Doom Kitty was there.
Yes, Ivy was there. Ivy made the birthday cake.
Oh, really?
Is and was good friends with Stan. Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay, I knew she was there. I didn't know she made the cake, but that's awesome.
Yes. It's funny. There's pictures of her. She made the birthday cake.
But before we get into the details for Stan's event, I did want to talk about like when you made the Nebula costume or the second one. I think it's just crazy how you had to do that during having a full-time job too, because like the stress of that, like going to work and then coming back and just like staying up on like for late hours just making that costume. I mean, that must have been incredibly stressful for you.
It was. It very much was. Because I was like, oh man, I just know for these couple of weeks I'm not going to be a very good teacher because my brain is just eating, sleeping, and breathing Nebula. And I'm like, if I don't get this done, I'm never going to forgive myself. See, I would never in my life half-ass something, but I was also like, I hold myself to such a high standard with what I make. I'm like, this has got to be the best thing I've ever made. Like, this is going to be for the the people that made the damn character. It needs to be amazing. And yeah, I was a very stressed out little panda.
I mean, like, did the other, I guess the other faculty members for your school, did they know that you were doing this project too on the side?
They did. I told my principal, um, and my principal knows what I do, and he sees all of the cool stuff that I like make online, and he'll often just pop his head in and be like, "Hey, what are you making?" And I'm like, "I'm teaching," and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend? Are you going somewhere cool?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So I'm really lucky that I work at a place where they like totally think it's awesome, and they're not like, "What a weirdo." 'Cause I don't know. I think it helps that I have photographic evidence too of all the fun things that I've gotten to do because pictures of me with Karen Gillan, pictures of me with Stan Lee. I'm like, guys, I promise I wasn't lying. Look, they actually did go to Stan Lee's birthday party.
And speaking of that, can you talk about like that experience, just like going to his birthday party, meeting Stan?
Oh man, it was amazing. So it was a fan run party. There is a fan run organization in LA called Legion M, which is a fan owned like entertainment business slash like filmmaking industry where I'm trying to find the word for it. Like you invest into the company, and then the company as a whole produces fan films, puts on events. And so Legion M is a group of, they say, by the fans for the fans. And so it's fans that pool their money together to make cool things happen. So if you remember the Tolkien movie that just came out about like Lord of the Rings Tolkien, that was funded by Legion M. So that was a fan made film that they cast the entire thing and produced and everything. So anyway, so this company, Legion M, they were putting on this event for Stan Lee's 95th birthday. And it was right after the release of Guardians of the Galaxy, and they wanted like a big exciting thing for Stan's belated 95th birthday. And it was actually really tragic because we were afraid that the event was going to be canceled because the week prior to the birthday party, Stan's wife Joan passed away.
Right.
And so do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that event happening on Facebook, and then like um I wasn't following the whole birthday trend at that time, but like when his wife passed, I knew that it was serious at the time, and then like pretty
Mhm.
much after that, like that's when all the pictures of his birthday still like emerged anyway.
Right. And we were so afraid because, they asked me to be a part of it, and they wanted a couple of cosplayers to like come and be in costume and in character just to kind of like add to the fun of the evening, because really it was a big VIP party. Like the Black Eyed Peas came to the party. Um like there was like celebrities that showed up to this party for Stan, and I was there just to be like a humble decoration and take pictures with people and add to the vibe of the evening. But even still, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I got invited to this. And it was actually, the birthday party took place on the side of like the mountain overlooking Hollywood Boulevard, the same building that was used as Tony Stark's mansion.
Yes, I remember seeing photos of that. I know Ivy Doom Kitty, she posted those pictures up, and that was
Yeah.
crazy to see like how that took place at that event or that venue there, and like just seeing how everyone was just interacting there. And I know that when you went, because of like you getting to meet Stan and working with Marvel, I also saw that you were able to go to the red carpet for Endgame or
Oh,
Infinity War and
yes.
Endgame. And like I know that like not just you but other cosplayers that I follow were at the event too. And like
Right.
can you talk about like that experience too, just like meeting all the actors there? And like for me, I was
Absolutely.
just like fanning out through your guys' pages, like holy shit, like they're meeting like Chris Hemsworth and Evans and like Chris Pratt and all that stuff. Like that was so crazy to see that.
Right. And as I'm standing there, it's like hard for me to believe too. I was like, I can't fucking believe this is happening right now. And really, it's funny, just over the course of us talking here, you think about it, all of this happened because I didn't give up when an entire group of people quit on me for making this costume. And if I hadn't just tried anyway and done Nebula by herself, I would have never gone to Stanley's, and I would have never gone to the red carpet premiere. I would have never had all these experiences. I never got to meet Karen if I hadn't done all this stuff. And it's like, it's crazy how one thing can affect so much, and just choosing to like persevere even when you kind of feel like giving up. You never know what's going to happen. And so on the note of the Endgame premiere, so that was Stan's birthday, and we're really happy that after all was said and done with his wife, passing and all that, he still was in good spirits. He was there. We got to take pictures. We sung happy birthday. He gave a really amazing little speech. And so it was an intimate space to just see him like be happy among some of his like friends and fans. And it was really, really cool. So then fast forward to the Avengers Endgame era, because obviously Nebula appeared in the prior Avengers films, but Endgame was really like the culminating end of this, 20-year saga of films, all the way starting with Iron Man 1. And so all of that led to Endgame, of course. Nebula had a new outfit in that one, but it was the white space armor, and I, with the opportunity that I was given, didn't have time to make the new space armor, but they were like, you know what, she wears the red suit for most of the film anyway, just come in that. And so the connection that I had to get to the Stan Lee party is the same person who then again contacted me saying, hi, I have 40 slots of availability to bring people to the red carpet premiere of Endgame. They are the best of the best in costuming. They are going to look the best of the best in the Avengers realm. And he's like, you're the only Nebula I could think of, and the only Nebula that we would want, because you're like so high quality. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. And so I was like, really? Because this thing is made out of Goodwill scraps and my hopes and dreams. So the fact that they thought it looked that good enough to stand amongst the stars, it really was like the culminating piece of this incredible story of me starting as this character, and then now I'm like literally standing with the stars. Like it sounds like a dream just talking about it. I'm sitting here in my craft room and I'm like, wow, reminiscing on all of this stuff really makes it into perspective of like how small of a chance all this stuff actually was of actually happening. So the Endgame premiere, I drove out again with my dad in tow, because I had already taken him on all these grand adventures, and he's the reason that I was raised like such a nerd anyhow. I'm like, I'm going to take him to this with me too, because I was allowed to bring one handler with me. So I packed up the costume in the trunk. We drove out to LA. We met up with a bunch of the other costumers. It was Nicole Marie Jean, there was Maid of Might, there was Joanna Lynn Burt, all good friends of mine that I had met through the years of doing cosplay in California. And I had a stretch of time where I actually worked at Disneyland, so I befriended a lot of the people that were annual pass holders and frequented there. So I met up with all of them at an Airbnb, and we all got ready and we went down to the convention center, and the red carpet event was starting at about 3, but we got there 2 hours early at about 1, just because we were like, we're going to stand around and we're going to be the first ones there. And they purposely didn't advertise this to the public, because if the public knew that all of the celebrities were going to be there, they would absolutely just crowd the space. And funny enough, you and I were talking about at the very beginning of our podcast here about Anime Expo, and it is at the same convention center that Anime Expo is held at. It's the Los Angeles Convention Center. And so that very same building was, and that very same staircase that you referred to upon meeting me for the first time, was where we walked through the building and we went to the back gate area, and they gave us these crazy wristbands. We were like basically cavity checked by security to make sure that nothing weird was going to get in. And they hustled us all the way through, and we were just led into this open space. And rather than it being a red carpet, it was the purple carpet because of Thanos. So it was the purple carpet premiere. And they had this big gated off area where we were just supposed to stand and look pretty for all the paparazzi that were coming and all of the press coverage that was coming. And our job was to just be really enthusiastic and stand there and cheer and scream and about how much we love these characters. And obviously that's not hard to pretend. So it was an incredible space. But the tricky part was, is as we were standing there, once you enter and once you get in there, you're not allowed to exit. So if you had to go to the bathroom, tough, you're out of the premiere.
Oh, wow.
So we had people literally and figuratively pissing themselves because if you lost your spot and you exited the area, you were not allowed back in. So thank God I didn't drink a lot of water that day because I planted myself right up against the front barrier. I planted my feet. I had brought like a big toy Infinity Gauntlet with me in the hopes of getting it signed. And me and my dad planted our feet, and I said, Dad, we're not moving from the spot for the next 4 hours. And he was like, Yup, agreed. And so we were one of the first waves of people that were let in. And so then everyone else kind of crowded in behind us. It was like a concert. They like smashed us up against the barricade and, all this stuff. And we were like, I'm not moving. No one is getting this spot but me. And the celebrities, it was a press conference. And so they were rolling up in their limousines and their crazy stuff. And no joke, like 30 feet in front of me was the curb where their limos were pulling up. The door would open, the paparazzi would start snapping away. It was flashes of lights, and there they were. They were getting out of their limousines, and the first thing they did was they walked up to us, which was right in front of the barricade area. They waved, they did their fan thing, and they signed a couple things, and then they walked inside to go do the press conference to talk about the movie and everything. And so every single person that arrived walked past us. And on that Infinity Gauntlet, as I stood there smiling as Nebula, they did a little interview about me. There's some awesome footage of me and Karen giving a big hug to each other. Because at that point, like I said, with the tweet before, Karen had shared me before. She and I saw each other a couple more times over the years at different events and stuff. And so there's this funny video that is, again, out there somewhere. It was on her Instagram and the Marvel Instagram of someone filming of her walking up to me with her arms out and going, oh my God, what are you doing here? Me giving her a big hug and going, I came all this way for you. And she was like, oh my God. So it was really fun because she remembered me from before and she was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I followed you.
That's
So
awesome to be
it was
like to be recognized like that too for just your Nebula costume and like that. I think that really like shows like how much they appreciate your craft too. Like to see that
right.
that you represent their character, and like I think that's just awesome that Karen still like saw you and still knew that, oh yeah, that's the Nebula cosplayer that I know of.
Right. It gave me a heart attack because I was like, oh, there's, she's probably not going to remember, but I was standing there smiling and her eyes got wide and she dropped open her mouth and she was like, oh my God. And I was like, because obviously I'm like, in my brain, I'm like, you're my best friend now. I'm like, this woman doesn't know my name, obviously, but she remembered and she was like, oh my God, hi. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to die happy. So there's a video of me and Karen having a moment, and all of the celebrities that walked by, I have an awesome selfie with, and I got them to sign my Infinity Gauntlet. And by the end of the night, after they all walked past, even I missed a couple autographs because people were busy and some didn't stop for autographs at all. But I ended up with 27 signatures on my Infinity Gauntlet.
Oh wow.
Yeah, 27 from everybody from the Russo brothers as the directors to all three Chris's, Karen, Paul Rudd, everybody, Ruffalo, all of them. So I have the most sacred possession that I own is my Infinity Gauntlet. And it's in a glass case in my living room now, with a little placard that I had made in commemoration of my coolest day ever at the world premiere.
I was gonna ask you that too, like to see if you actually like put that in the glass case. That's just fucking awesome.
Oh yeah, I went and got it authenticated and everything. I took it to an authentication service because they travel around the country. The authenticators do, and they usually stop at like card shops, memorabilia places. And so one day I tracked where the guy was going to be traveling, and he was going to be pretty close to my house. So I was like, oh hell yeah, I'm going to go take the gauntlet and get authenticated. And so I walk into this card shop with like a bunch of old guys and their baseball cards, right? And they've got like jerseys and mitts and stuff that they're going to sign. And I'm waiting among all these old folks, and they're looking over at me with this giant gold Infinity Gauntlet on my arm, and they're like, what is that? And finally, after like 2 hours of waiting, it was my turn, and I walked back to the authenticator, who's, been authenticating like jerseys and baseball gloves for the last however many hours, and his eyes get wide, and he goes, ooh, when he received my gauntlet. And the authenticator was so stoked, and it took him 9 hours to authenticate all the signatures.
Oh wow.
But I did it.
And you paid for that too, right? To have them authenticate all of that too?
Oh yeah, I had to pay $150 for for his time because they do it in like increments of like if it's one autograph we're authenticating, it's like $20. If it's anywhere from 5 to 10, it's $50. And then if it gets to 25 plus, it's 150 to get it authenticated. And I was like, worth it.
Yeah, definitely. It's like I've tried to authenticate, like, or not authenticate, but I had like comic books graded. I had one comic book graded. It was like a few years ago. Um, but yeah, like just to know like your gauntlet itself, I didn't know that it got signed like that. I saw photos of
Yeah.
you wearing it and having seeing the celebrities come by and take photos with you, but that is just amazing to know that you got that many signatures and
I made it my number one priority. I had Sharpies on my belt like a bandolier. I was like, bam, Sharpie, bam, Sharpie. Hi, nice to meet you, Mr. Ruffalo. Will you sign this, please? Like, I didn't have time to be nervous. I didn't have time to be shy. It was so fast paced. It was nuts. Like one person would get out and then two more would get out. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to catch everybody. And Brie Larson was one of the sweetest ones too, because she was working her way all the way through the line. She's saying hi to every single person. Captain Marvel had just come out, so she was like at her peak and she looked beautiful. She had this purple dress on like Thanos, and she had this piece of jewelry that was made to look like the Infinity Gauntlet on her hand. It was like all the different stones as rings and then a bracelet they all connected to. So she was like loving the Marvel life.
yeah,
And so
I saw that too because there was like a lot of prop stores online that was trying to like imitate that too, like the
right, yeah, her piece of jewelry. She had it custom made, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, that's so cool!" And so now everyone makes that piece. But Brie had it custom made, and so she's saying hi to everybody, every single person. She took forever getting through the line. She gets to me, she signs the gauntlet. I have some awesome pictures with her, and then right after me, there were these little children in front of me that I had like helped usher to the front because I was like, you know what, there's kids, people can back off. So I grabbed the kids from the parent who was standing behind me, and I was like, I'll watch them, don't worry. So I shoved the kids up next to me, so they were right in front of me, these little guys. And right as she was about to go say hi to them, a manager or something comes up behind her and goes, Brie, we gotta go. And she was like, just a few more. And they were like, no, 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 we gotta go now, it's starting. And she was like, crap. And she looks at me and she points at me and she goes, I'm gonna come back. Remind me where I left off. And I went, okay. And so she walks away, and I was like, Brie Larson talked to me today. And so she goes away, and I was like, oh, she's probably going to get sucked into whatever she's doing. And sure as shit, 20 minutes later, she comes walking back out through those doors, comes right up to me and goes, it was you, right? And I was like, yes, ma'am. And she was like, who's next? And I was like, these little guys right here. And I pointed at the kids in front of me. And bless her heart, she continued and finished every single person for the rest of like the stretch of the line.
That is
She like stopped
amazing.
every single one. She's amazing, totally amazing. And I was like, oh, she actually came back and was like, I will say hi to everybody. So that was a happy memory. That was cool. And then there was, do you want one more fun story? I know I'm like babbling on and
Oh,
on
go
about
ahead,
this.
keep going. Like I'm enjoying this. This is amazing because like I'm just like picturing this in my head, like just remembering the Instagram photos and all that stuff, and like
Yeah.
just like because like it was to the point where I'm like, these people that I follow on social media, like they're actually living their dreams and opportunities to meet like these celebrities and whatnot, like that. It paid off, and I've
Insane. It's insane to just think back. So after Brie, one of my favorite memories of the whole experience was, funny enough, with Vin Diesel. So Vin Diesel obviously is famous not in the Marvel universe, but in all of the universe.
right.
Vin Diesel's had like the longest career ever, and he's like a real established celebrity that isn't just in Marvel movies. He's got his own franchises. He's like everything. But it got to the very end, and the limos started coming a little less frequently. Like, there were some celebrities that came just on behalf of other celebrities. Like, Miley Cyrus showed up because at that time she was married to
To
Liam
Liam, yeah.
Hemsworth. Right. And so Liam came to support his brother, and therefore Miley came with Liam. And so she got out of the limo and she's walking by, and I went, you guys, that's fucking Miley Cyrus. I was like, she's more famous than everyone here combined. Like, she's like real people famous, not just like Marvel celebrity famous. She's like, never mind, moving on. So it was funny. Natalie Portman came by, and my dad starts crying at that one. And I'm like, Dad, what's the matter? And he's like, Padme.
Oh man.
So I'm like, Dad, Dad, you're at a Marvel premiere. Stop thinking about Star Wars. And he's like, Padme. So that was extra funny. But like this said, Vin Diesel. So the crowd had kind of tapered off. There were less cars showing up at this point. But then one more rolls up. And we were like, you know who we haven't seen yet? And then he opens the door and out steps Vin. And everyone's like, whoa! And they go berserk. And we all start chanting, we are Groot! We are Groot! Because obviously Vin is the voice of Groot. And Vin loves Groot. He loves him. And so he had a custom made blazer jacket made from, I believe the gentleman's name, he just goes by Professional Cosplay. He's a professional suit maker in California that replicates like superhero suits, Batman suits, like Deadpool suits, that kind of stuff. I believe he reached out to this gentleman named Professional Cosplay to make this Groot jacket for him. And so Vin steps out of the limo and he looks like he has bark and moss all over him, and he's, you know, wearing a jacket that looks like Groot. And so he's having a good old time, and he's like, Rah! He's like screaming, and we're all cheering for him. And so he starts signing autographs, and, you know, he's working his way down the line, and he gets to my gauntlet, and I'm smiling from ear to ear. I'm like, wow, it's really Groot. And he walks a little bit past me and continues down the line, and we're all cheering, woo, woo, woo. And then there's this odd silence. You know how, like, just sometimes the crowd all stops at the same time?
Right.
And there was just this awkward lull where everyone, like, stopped screaming. Vin is still signing. Well, I didn't get the memo to stop screaming. So right as most of the crowd gets quiet enough to hear, I'm screaming at the top of my lungs at Vin Diesel, and I said, I love you because you're the Iron Giant! And he stops, and he looks over at me, and it was just quiet, and everyone looked at me, and I looked at him, and I said, I'm really sorry I just yelled in your face. And he looks at me, and he smiles, and he goes, it's okay, I am the Iron Giant! And he, like, roars for the crowd, and they all start laughing, and I was like, I just screamed in Vin Diesel's face, and I didn't even mean it, because we were just being loud, and then we weren't. But obviously, one of my favorite movies ever is The Iron Giant. I was raised on that animated film, and Vin Diesel also plays the voice of the Iron Giant, and I was like, well, there's a time and a place for everything, and maybe the red carpet premiere of Avengers Endgame is not the place to scream at Vin Diesel about being the Iron Giant, but I did it anyway. So now that's my favorite story to tell from the premiere, because I screamed at Vin Diesel, and he was like, I am the Iron Giant. It's like talking to, you know, the president, or talking to, you know, someone of real importance and congratulating them on, like, their third grade play.
Man,
Like,
that's such a crazy experience. Like, I'm just like still like soaking it all in, and just like I'm like I'm literally just like smiling right now. Like it's that.
my cheeks hurt, and I'm happy you asked me about it, because I haven't told the story in a while, and every time I tell the story, it's not in a way that could be saved. And now that we have your podcast, we know the full story of how Nebula came to be, like, from start to finish.
Yeah, like, and that's the thing too, because like I'm just thinking back and just like seeing how far that costume just like carried a big part of your career too, and it's
It did.
and like you said, man, like it's just so crazy, because like, you know, how it just started off with the group saying no, like we're not there, and then like you just continued on, and I'm just like soaking all this information in, and seeing how you went from Nebula to where you are now, and that's such a crazy experience to even think that this one particular costume of a character would just help you meet all these A-list celebrities and bring you to all these crazy events.
It's
And
wild, right? Like, I've
yeah,
gotten pulled up on stage at San Diego Comic-Con. I've won grand prize masquerades because of this costume, and it's literally all scraps from Goodwill.
and you won at San Diego, right, with that Nebula costume?
Yes, I was pulled up on stage, not in the San Diego Masquerade, but for the Marvel costume contest that they were holding on stage. I was given the award for Best in Women's for my Nebula, which was awesome. And then at Phoenix Comic Con, I was given Best in Show / Best in Masters for her as well. So Nebula 2.0, the red version, has won 3 awards formally, and has brought me more priceless opportunities than I could ever describe.
And again, I want to kind of just go back and like talk about like how you built the costume too. What are your thoughts on like cosplayers going into like makeup and effects for movies? Because usually that's not like where we a lot of fans in particular think like that's where cosplayers who create should go to. Because like there's always like those comments that show like cosplayers dress better than the actual movie that's in like what I'm talking about like
I
that.
have seen those, yeah, where it's like the cosplayer looks better than what they ended up with on the big screen.
Yeah. So what's your take on that? Do you think like cosplayers should use that opportunity to try to go into the movie stuff, or like
Oh
just
shoot,
continue?
why not? I mean, if they love something enough, like, and in my case, like, I love this enough that if I were given the opportunity to do this forever, I would absolutely do it forever. I had an opportunity actually to meet the costume designer that designed Nebula's costume after the fact. At San Diego Comic Con, they were holding a like costuming of like they named the panel something, or it was like costuming from space and beyond. And I went to the panel not knowing anything about it, and it turns out the lady that was one of the main speakers that day was one of the women who designed Nebula's looks and designed Thor and designed like all of these notable superheroes. And so I'm sitting there at this panel and I'm like, holy crap, what? And I wasn't in costume, I wasn't in anything, I was just there for enjoyment. It was like the last day of San Diego, and I was like living to like watch this woman talk about her process, and she brought fabric samples of like how she made Nebula and all this stuff. And so I got to go shake her hand after the panel was over, and I showed her my pictures of me as Nebula, and she zoomed in on my phone and she was like, oh my gosh, this looks like just like what I made. And I was like in tears. I'm like, wow, I've like truly come full circle, that I've met the costume designer, I've met the actress, I was at the red carpet premiere. I'm like, if I died now, I will have done everything with this character that I possibly could. So it's I think it's an amazing thing that people are working their way into the big screen, because if costumers are as passionate as they are just to make a cosplay for fun, imagine what they could do if they were given, you know, unlimited budget and unlimited like opportunity to like bring their skills to like the big screen. That would just be so cool. So I totally think that people, if given the opportunity, should get involved. So it's another form of art, and it's kind of like comparing whether an artist can be an artist if even if they didn't go to art school. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
people can make art whether or not they paid to have a degree in art. So yes, there are special effects makeup artists that went to school for special effects makeup, but why can't that girl on YouTube using toilet paper and gum paste be as good of a makeup artist on the movie than that person could? It's all about the opportunity that like you're given, and obviously some people go to school for it and some people can't go to school for it, but those people, if their skill is there, it should speak for itself.
Exactly.
And it's like, why try to hold somebody down if like, oh, you didn't go to school? Well, we're in a new era now. YouTube University and the internet and the world has changed with how opportunity is gifted. And if you look at YouTubers and you look at Instagram influencers and you see the crazy things that have come from just existing as a presence on the internet, anything is possible. Look at like Lindsay Sterling, the violinist, and how she started out just making YouTube videos on like her channel, and now she travels the world with Evanescence playing violin and sold out shows. So it's like you can do whatever you want to, and it doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter your schooling. If you're passionate and if you're good at it, someone's going to notice.
I had the opportunity to meet her once in Michigan, and that was like jaw dropping for me. It was during her VIP meet and greet, and like you just go and take your photo with her, and like I wasn't expecting like anything else from her. I was just like gonna get the hug and leave, get the autograph too, and just leave. And like she's like, "Wait, come back, let me give you a hug." I'm like, "Oh shit!" That caught me
You
off
were like,
guard.
okay.
Yeah, like that caught me off guard, and then like they take the photo of me hugging her, so I look so awkward. But yeah, like it's just the opportunities that you get, and like you're talking about skill and everything too for cosplaying. I feel like that's where the showmanship shines, because like if you can make a costume from just goodwill material, imagine like giving that person with that skill set like you said, with the budget and with even greater material to work with, I think they
Right.
can make something even more amazing than what's already in the film or what the costume maker on the set can actually make.
Exactly. Or if you think about it this way, cosplayers, they do everything. They're a one-man show. That lady that made Nebula's costume had a team of people to do stuff for her.
Right.
So the cosplayer is doing everything in their kitchen or their garage, but they are their pattern maker. They are their stitcher. They are their painter. They are their weatherer. They are their dyer. They are their fitter. Like everything that goes into making a costume or armor or anything, they do it all themselves. They're a one-man show. On a movie set, you have people whose specific job it is to hand stitch sequins onto that thing. Someone whose specific job it is to weather the shoes and weather the gloves. Like, but we do everything out of our garage. And if that doesn't speak for itself with the skill of what people can make out there and how movies, the people in the movie should pay attention to that, like that's something to behold because people are amazing and the stuff that they can make that we can make in our houses is just cray cray.
Yeah, that's where I have like so much respect for, again, like with for cosplayers in general, just like the things that they can just build out of like just anything, and like that's where I appreciate the art so much. And just to continue on, I did want to talk about your Twitch streaming that you're currently doing too. You started streaming a few weeks ago, or was it already early, like late last year?
It,
When?
it's been just about a month now. I
Okay.
started the beginning of the year, so I began in January, and Twitch streaming is something that I've wanted to add to my repertoire for a long time. I've watched many amazing cosplayers stream their builds on Twitch, working on their armor, working on their painting, and so I eventually hope to take my Twitch stream into that realm. I am just getting started, and really, it's a whole new world for me because I'm not the best with technology. I get it, and I'm not like a middle-aged clueless person or anything like that. But when it comes to the specifics of like how to run a live stream and Twitch as a platform, I'm still kind of unfamiliar with. So every time I turn it on, it's a little bit of more of a learning experience for me, and it took a lot of guts for me to just dive right in because it's not an area that I'm comfortable with. I'm comfortable talking to people. I can talk all day long, but it's the technology aspect that was scaring me a little bit. But AmberSkies TV, which is my channel, has been going pretty good. I already crossed over 1,000 views on my videos and channel. I've got a couple hundred followers already, so it's going really good. Despite the fact that I'm just chatting with people right now, and like opening up mail from my PO box that people are kind enough to send to me, and I've played a little bit of video games. I've been doing a lot of digital art. I've been drawing for people and live streaming that.
Yeah,
So
I saw your Mandalorian art
yes,
this week.
my hilarious Mandalorian art.
So I guess when it comes to streaming, then like, do you have something that you want to do, like I guess just solidify? Then is it not just for gaming? Do you just want to have a bunch of different like opportunities, or do you kind
Oh
of are you
yeah,
just
well
playing with it for now?
I'm just playing it with it for now. I would love to, in an ideal world, like do it more days a week than I'm currently doing. Because right now I only stream on Mondays and Thursdays. Because again, I'm trying to fit it in between my teaching schedule without getting too overwhelmed. But I would pretty much just call myself a variety streamer at this point. A lot of just chit chat, hanging out with people, and making a little bit of art, playing a little bit of games. But I'm working on building my setup a little bit better before I get into like real gaming. Because I'm streaming everything from my laptop currently. Twitch streams is probably cringing at the thought of me streaming from a laptop. Mind you, it's a very good laptop. It's like a 2 grand laptop, but it's still a laptop nonetheless. So it can only handle so much.
Well, from what I've seen on your stream, it looks pretty legit already, just like all the software you use and everything. So I didn't even notice that you were using a laptop until you said it.
Oh,
um,
that's good to know.
yeah.
Because I
So
was always worried about it being choppy and like it really limits me because I can't like, play World of Warcraft and stream at the same time because it's not a desktop and it's limiting me a little bit. But I think with some time and once I get a couple more months under my belt, I'll be more comfortable with it all.
I was touching streaming earlier today before we podcasted. And like my laptop's not really built for streaming. It's just I just use it to record my podcast. I was on
Hmm.
Facebook Live and I was just playing it for like 30 minutes, and I realized like, wow, man, like the multitasking aspect of streaming, I was not prepared for that. Like to kind of just continue talking, looking at the camera, trying to read the comments. I'm like, yeah, I give you guys respect for that because it
Oh
looks so
yeah.
it looks so easy at first, and when I was doing it, my mind was going blank. I'm like, I can't keep up with this.
Right. And it's like trying to read comments, respond to people. It's trying to keep your eye on the screen all at the same time, like doing the thing that you were supposed to be streaming all along without getting distracted, which I'm very distractible by nature anyway. So,
Again, so your stream name is AmberSkies TV. For our listeners, definitely follow Amber on Twitch. Can you talk about like the subscriptions? That's part of the Twitch stuff too. Like I know people, you have like certain people that like pays your subscriptions, right?
right, yeah. So the idea of subscribing to a Twitch streamer, I'm preaching to the choir because I bet a lot of you know this already, but it's essentially paying $4.99 to Twitch, portion of which goes to the streamer. And it just kind of helps improve the stream. It can go towards like improving equipment. Like on my end, for example, I take everything that I get from my subs and I send all of my subs a free print as a thank you. So I either do like a cosplay print that they like and they can request it, or like maybe they liked the Mandalorian that I had been drawing on stream and they want that as their choice. So if you subscribe, I always like to send a love letter and a thank you package for even considering helping me out. But it also later on unlocks emotes, which are like little emojis you can use in the chat. It allows you to do special privileges within that person's channel if you subscribe to them. So it's kind of just like taking your viewing of the person to another level and showing them that you appreciate what they're making and you want them to keep doing it and to keep streaming consistently. And so, yeah, so you can use an Amazon Prime account to subscribe to a Twitch streamer. And then it's, free. You get one subscription a month on Twitch through Amazon Prime because it's owned. Twitch is owned by Amazon. Or yeah, you can tier 1 subscribe all the way up to tier 3 where you're donating a larger chunk of change to the streamer. So yeah, I'm really lucky that I've got a little army under my belt right now. And I'm probably going to link them to your podcast, Ricky, when it's all done. So shout out to my potato army, I call them.
I was gonna ask you about that too. Well, like how did that came about, like with the potato army? So I saw the comments on your stream. I'm like, everyone's saying taters, potatoes, and all that stuff. I'm like, where did that come about? Like it was just because I jumped on. I started watching your stream like I think a week and a half ago. And I just was just going through the comments, just scrolling through just to see what the fans are talking about. And I just keep seeing potatoes, potatoes, taters. And I'm just like, I had no idea what that was. I thought it was like an inside joke. And then you mentioned it, like that was your army or your group. So how did that
Yes,
come
it
about?
kind of is an inside joke. At least it started as an inside joke. Because it all kind of came from the first couple of streams and even further back inside joke when I was playing World of Warcraft with my friends because I had never used Discord before. And Discord is kind of like, Skype or anything else where you can talk to people while you're mid game. And I, again, being bad with technology, had just plugged in my headphones for the first time and I didn't know how to unmute them. So I was just talking into them and my microphone was muted and I couldn't get my levels correct and I didn't know what I was doing wrong. And so eventually I just shouted out, if you can hear me, say potato, because they were all talking. And I was like, I need some acknowledgement that anyone can hear me. And they were like, oh, potato, we can hear you. So it turns out I thought my mic was muted and they could hear me the whole time. They just weren't answering me. So now I always start my stream to check my audio and to make sure everything's working correctly. And I say, if you can hear me, say potato. That way I know that my stream is coming through clear, that my microphone is turned on, that I don't have anything muted, that I'm on the correct channel. So it's kind of a technology check for me. And then the potato thing has just kind of skyrocketed. And now you're allowed to name your tiered subscriptions. So you have like tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, like we talked about. I call tier 1 the tater tots, and tier 2 is the side of fries, and tier 3 is the loaded baked potato army. So it just kind of plays on the stupid potato gag that I had going on, where I was like, "Hi, if you can hear me, say potato, so I know that the audio is working." So now they are my potato army, and it's silly and it makes no sense, but that's us. So we hang out on Mondays at 7 o'clock Mountain Standard Time and Thursdays Mountain Standard Time, 7 o'clock. Yeah, and I want to start branching out more and more and doing more days, doing different types of things. And we recently just hit our subscriber goal on Twitch. We hit over 50 subscribers, which is so sick. And you can gift subscriptions to people too. So a lot of those subs that we acquired were people that had gifted them to other viewers. So they paid for someone else to be subscribed, which was really kind. So we just hit 50. So that means that the next time I stream, we're going to be doing some sort of special effects makeup. Ooh, on stream.
All right, I'll be looking forward to that. And just to let you know too, I will be subscribing because
Oh,
you were able to do this podcast with me, so I'd like to return and be
oh,
and
Ricky.
appreciate that. So thank you again. But yeah, this is awesome. And I guess before we wrap up here, did you want to like say like any tips or give advice to any of the listeners that want to, I guess, just pursue what you've done too? Because I know that a lot of my listeners, they're really, I guess, they're looking forward to what you have to say with like cosplay and with just trying to be a content creator overall.
You're so nice. I would say, gosh, don't let your head get the best of you. Um, and that can mean that in whatever way, but for me that means don't let your fear get the best of you, because I am a tad bit of a perfectionist, and I don't really like failure very much. Failure is a part of life, but if I can avoid it, I'm going to sure as heck try to. So like in regards to my Twitch streaming, I was shaking, terrified to start the stream for the first time, because I had no idea if any of that technology was going to work, and you're not really able to test it until you just go for it for the very first time. So that in regard to streaming is, don't ever be afraid to try something new, despite the fact that it's kind of terrifying. But you never know what it could lead to. And in regard to cosplay and costuming, is aim for the stars, but stay humble. Like, have big dreams, but be okay with the fact that they may or may not come to fruition without a lot of hard work. Because this whole podcast and talking with you today, Ricky, it's like it's made me reflect a lot. And I'm sitting here and it's like none of that would have happened if I hadn't just given it a shot. And you never know, especially in this new world of social media, who's paying attention. So even if it feels like no one is, and I know that the internet now in this day is all a numbers game, and you can kind of get down on yourself if you don't have the numbers that you think you want, and the response isn't what you hoped. But really, this art and this art form of creation and cosplay, it should be self-fulfilling before it fulfills others. It should be something you love. And if it's something that you don't love, you shouldn't be doing it anymore. Take a break, step back, and until you love it, you're not going to be satisfied. So just don't let the costume make you cry, and don't let social media make you cry, because you're amazing and there's no wrong way to cosplay. So just do it, because you never know if you're going to be the next person at a red carpet premiere.
Thank you so much again, Amber. Do you have any plugs or shout outs that you like to do?
Sure. I guess I want to say thank you to all of you guys for listening. This has been a really long podcast, and I was never short-winded, so I appreciate it if you made it all the way to the end here. And thank you to you, Ricky, for having me here in the first place. I always love telling this story, and I'm really happy that the Nebula story has been fully captured from start to finish on audio, because I tell the story so many times, and now I can just be like, hey, here's Ricky's podcast. Go listen to it. I don't have to tell you again. Just go put it on while you're driving or something. Yeah, shout out to my dad for getting me going on this crazy world and teaching me to read with comic books, and fostering my love of all this weirdness, because it wouldn't have happened if I didn't have the support of my parents and of my beautiful fiance, and like everyone that's just told me to keep on chugging and wipe my tears and keep on crafting. So Yeah, and shout out to the Potato Army and every single person who has stuck by me in this process. So y'all are amazing, and I can't wait to see where 2020 and life takes Amber Skies from here.
And to the listeners, if you want to follow Amber, I'll have all her social media links in the descriptions of YouTube, SoundCloud, or Apple Podcasts, wherever platform you're listening to. That way you can follow her as well. I'll definitely add the links to your video with Marvel as well, with the No
Yeah,
Nebula. I'll have that. I'll look for that and I'll put that link in there too. Um,
Marvel becoming. That's the good stuff.
Again, okay, so thank you so much, Amber. I really appreciate this, and I know this was longer than expected, but all the information that in the stories you told is gold to me. It is
Oh
perfect.
no, you're awesome. And really, it's all on my end. Thanks for sitting with me for this long because I'm sure you didn't plan on it.
Oh no, it's okay because I really appreciate this, and like I am really grateful for this opportunity, because for me, just starting this podcast and getting guests and everything, like it's a lot harder than I thought it was, and then to have someone like you to just jump on and agree, that I really appreciate that.
No, you're awesome. And you're, like we said, you are the perfect example of doing the thing even though you're scared. You are running this podcast, you are growing, you're reaching out, and you're taking risks, and it's working. So you keep on chugging on your end too. And all you listeners, everyone keep chugging. Whatever that thing is you're trying to do, don't let your brain hold you back. You are stronger than your brain.
I did want to just let the listeners know next week I will be having no guest for the next episode, but I will be, I guess, discussing and reviewing some of the anime films that I've been watching, such as Konosuba, Weathering with You, and also I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, and that's an actual movie.
That's awesome.
So definitely check that out. I'll be reviewing those three movies for the for my Valentine's Day special as well. So
I also want to eat your pancreas, Ricky.
I don't think you want to. I'm definitely not healthy right now. So again, thank you so much, and make sure you guys follow Amber's social media accounts, and make sure you continue to subscribe and like my content as well, and share. Thank you so much, and thank you guys again. This is Spoiler First Podcast. Thank you, and Amber, I can't say it enough. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, not at all. Bye, viewers and listeners, and all y'all cool people out there. Woo!
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, follow, like, share, comment, and rate Spoiler Force Podcast. For comments, questions, concerns, and criticism, you can email Spoiler Force Podcast at popluckpodcast, POPLUCK at gmail.com, or contact me personally on Instagram.com/RickyVang92, RICKYVANG92.